Go.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fundraising Talk. Our topic today is cause-related marketing. I think it's going to be a really interesting one. It's something that a lot of nonprofits are really good at. And it's really a great way to ensure passive income. So let's get into it.
Good morning. Thank you, Melanie. Morning, everyone. Really exciting topic today, and it's going to be lots of fun. And so welcome to Fundraising Talk. I think we're close to heading towards our 40th webinar. I must actually check the numbers. So thank you to you who participate and make this what it is. Just for those that are new to the webinar, and to remind us on the housekeeping, please make sure you're muted, your camera is off. For disclosure, we do record the session, and it is put on a YouTube channel, which will live there forever. So please be sensitive of what you say and your behavior, because once it's in the universe, it can't be taken back. We do have a chat facility, so any questions, please put in the chat. If you're new to Fundraising Talk, please let us know where you're from so we can welcome you. To our faithful stalwarts who are here every week, welcome back. Really exciting conversation today, and welcome back to some old names. And as we say every week, this is as successful as you make it. So please engage on the chat, and if we can't answer the questions, we'll find the answers, but let's make it as engaging as possible. So remember, mute video off and put your stuff in the chat, and we are recording. Mel?
Thanks, Kelvin. Just a little bit about us. My name is Melanie Jackson. I think I've probably met almost all of you. Hi, Anne. Glad you could make it. I run an organization in Cape Town called Words That Count, and well, we focus on the words that count. We help people with strategy, with funding proposals, with marketing communications. We've been around for a while, and we love working with the Cape Town folk. We have lots of fun down here, but of course the joy of COVID is it means we can work with anybody anywhere. So Kelvin came up with the idea of Fundraising Talk in the depths of lockdown. And I think he and I have gained so much from it. And we're so grateful to all of you who support us and attend our sessions and download our recordings. It's really, really lovely to have a tribe as engaged as this one. Kelvin?
Thank you, Melanie. And yes, welcome everybody. My name is Kelvin Glenn, for those of you that don't know me. Although I think I know just about everyone on this call as well. It is a small community we live and work in. My company is Kaluma SA, and myself and my business partner, we focus on supporting charities to be more effective in their fundraising through various things. So yes, as Melanie said, this was started as an initiative where we felt we needed to give back to our fellow colleagues, because we had empathy for the fact that fundraising can be a lonely game at the best of times. And then we were hit by COVID, which means we needed to raise more money in the middle of chaos. We were in lockdown. So we created this idea of let's just get together with our colleagues and support each other. And it's turned into a wonderful movement. So thank you to you who participate and make this what it is. Not only on the physical live events, but those that record and download the recording, and also those that engage on the WhatsApp group. So speaking about the WhatsApp group, we do have a WhatsApp group with more than 200 people on it now. So thank you for joining. It's an engaged group where we share knowledge, we share opportunities, we share best practice. Please, I reinforce, it is not an advertising platform. If every single one of us and every single charity advertised on it, it would become one of those horrible WhatsApp groups that nobody follows because there's so much gumph on it. We really want it to be an engaging opportunity and a platform for you to ask questions of your colleagues, to share best practice, to share ideas, share opportunities you find that you may not be able to utilize. And also, if there's other webinars that you're attending that are valuable to the fundraising sector and to the nonprofit sector, please share it. So we are going to become a bit like Agony Aunt and a bit harsh on it if people do try and advertise, just to respect everyone, because I think that's the beauty of our WhatsApp group, is that we've kept it disciplined and tight. And also, please, folks, we've had a lot of requests from people on the group. Please be sensitive and respect each other. Do not post stuff at 10 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning. It's not fair on the rest of the participants. There's nothing that urgent that needs to be posted at that time of the night. So please just respect each other. As I said, we do record this. It goes onto our YouTube channel. The address is there. It's normally up within an hour or two of the session. And probably 90% of our webinars are there. And I'm really, 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 really appreciating that the YouTube channel is starting to get some great traction, and we're getting 20, 25 people downloading the recording post the event, those folks that couldn't attend the physical webinar. So welcome, let's get into it. We're looking forward to a great day, and thank you for joining us.
Right, so let's talk about what cause-related marketing is and what it isn't. And we're always at pains to kind of point out the differences, because sometimes it's a fine line. In fact, when Kelvin and I were preparing this session, we looked at a couple of case studies and kind of went, but is that really cause-related marketing? So we really need to be clear on what it is. Our definition is that it's taking an opportunity to align a nonprofit brand with a for-profit product or service to create a passive income stream for the nonprofit. Of course, it also gives a huge amount of publicity and mileage, depending on the brand, and it makes the brand look good. And I find that so many of these are so successful and so creative. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and we'll get into that as we go along, but it's a wonderful opportunity for us to really step out of our little boxes for a little while and get creative about working with a brand or retailer. And what it isn't is sponsorship. And I wanted to make that distinction clear. Sponsorship is transactional. It's simply your sponsor is getting something for their money. You may get something out of it, you may not. But somebody who gets branding opportunity, or that is not cause-related marketing. Cause-related marketing is a sustained campaign that aligns your two brands in some way. So it's really important to make that distinction and know the difference when we're going into a relationship with a company.
Thank you, Mel. And I need to share that we had robust debate about this, Melanie and I, because, you know, it's so easy to fall into that trap to think it's CRM when it's actually not. So I need to thank Melanie for challenging me on one or two of the original ideas we had in the presentation, and even one or two that are slightly gray, which we will talk about today. So it is important that you really, 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 really take the time to sit back and really look at it and say, is this truly CRM? And if you're not sure, get advice, because what you don't want is you don't want dear Uncle SARS banging on your door and saying, you issued a Section 18A, or you raised money in the name of, but actually this was a commercial transaction. One needs to be very, very careful, because we have had companies who sponsor events or golf days and want Section 18As for the value, and it's actually not CRM, and it's actually not a donation. It's classified and treated as a sponsorship, which is a transactional item. So just be sensitive of that. Right, moving on. So what is cause-related marketing and what we call CRM? What it is when a brand engages with a charity to give the charity the opportunity as far as raising money for that charity. So the brand, through its brand recognition and through its brand proposition, creates, number one, awareness, because even if a person doesn't buy the product, they're still aware of the work. But number two, if they do buy the product and a percentage goes to, or a certain rand value goes to the charity, it is creating awareness for your charity. And it's a lovely way of raising money. So it's a really nice way that somebody else is raising money for you, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to work for it. It does take work. It's not a freebie. And we'll unpack that a little bit later. But really, it is a brand working with a charity to help raise money and help raise your profile. And I really want to just unpack that, because sometimes the CRM may not raise R1 million, but 100,000 new people are now aware of your organization. And they may go online and give you to you directly, or in 6 months' time when you do a campaign, they'll go, oh, I remember that charity. So don't only measure the rand value, measure also how your brand has been promoted by that brand and your cause. So cause-related marketing can have multiple benefits, not only fundraising, but obviously primarily at the end of the day, you got to put the work in, so you wanted to raise some money for you. And we're going to be looking at different models, big, small, old, new, different. So please just don't be open-minded when you hear this presentation, and you can take some good ideas. Not all of them are going to work for all of you. Some of them will work for you, some of them won't. And that's the beauty of this webinar, is that you take what you can out of it.
Definitely. So we're going to start with one of the biggest cause-related marketing campaigns that we know of in the world. Calvin and I, when we were setting this up, we were chatting at IFC in 2015. I was sitting next to the UNICEF team member who was negotiating with Pampers for this campaign. It's a long-standing campaign. It's been going now, Calvin, we were saying 10 or 11 years?
No, even longer than that. I think this is probably 15, 20 years old. It's a long campaign.
But it renews every year.
Yes.
So it's not guaranteed that they're going to get it every year. But so far, they've been really fortunate. And basically, what it is, for a certain period of time in the year, globally, for every large pack of Pampers nappies that's sold, one vaccine is donated. And it's a remarkable campaign. I mean, as a new parent, the whole concept of vaccination is top of mind. And of course, with COVID, we're thinking more about vaccinations than we ever were. And it really, for cause-conscious consumers, this is something that's going to push them in the direction of that particular brand. So it's a great relationship. I love the connection. Calvin, now that I think about it, my daughter's 19, and I'm sure I was buying product.
Well, it's said, there since 2006. It's actually on the.
Okay, no, then it wasn't her. Then it must have been for baby showers. But, my daughter's 19 now. But I mean, can you imagine? Since 2006, every year, this amazing campaign that donates, hundreds of thousands of vaccines. Absolutely brilliant. The way the branding ties together, it's just really one of the top campaigns that we've seen.
Yeah, and I need to just add on to that, Melanie. I think the great thing about this is that, and this is the beauty of CRM, and we'll share South African models later on, is that, when they started this, was a very huge goal for UNICEF to go to Pampers and say, can we globally do a CRM? And I'm sure it took years to negotiate and get it right. And I was fortunate in 2009, to work on the South African campaign for a couple of months. And I remember the tedious amounts of meetings I had to go to. But I was actually working with the corporate, because literally the on-pack, the in-store promotion, the local ad campaigns, it was a lot of work. But it not only raised money, huge amounts of money for UNICEF, but it's the brand association and the awareness, and it's to do good for a brand like Pampers. So CRM, we're giving you the global best practice here, can turn into a massive campaign that will bring massive money for you. But it is a process, and it takes time, and it takes energy, but it's an investment that will definitely help you. Right, then a South African model. We all know this one. I mean, I don't think there's a single South African that doesn't know about KFC and that doesn't know about AdHope. Another great model. I was fortunate to work for an organization that was their first beneficiary and is still getting money from them, and their biggest beneficiary. So, and I've worked very closely with the KFC team, or the AdHope team. And again, started as an idea and it's just grown. I stand to be corrected, but as of last year, they were supporting 144 charities in South Africa, and it was raising over 80 million rand. So that's massive. I mean, to mobilize 80 million rand from the public for 144 charities to feed hundreds of thousands of children every single day is no small initiative. And it really, really is a lovely campaign. And I love what KFC have come up with, in the sense of you are adding hope, and they spend a lot of money on advertising to push the brand. So basically, for those of you that don't know, what happens is that when you go to a KFC, they will ask you, they should ask you, because we do know some branches don't, bearing in mind that every KFC is a franchise. So they should be asking you, please add 2 rand to your bill, and that helps with AdHope, which helps feed a child or feed a hungry person. They have set up a separate KFC responsibility trust. So it's a separate legal entity. So all the money from AdHope goes into a separate entity. That trust has trustees from KFC corporate, from the franchisors, as well as independent trustees. It is audited independently, it is governed independently, but obviously has to be aligned to the KFC brand. And this is an old ad where they were at 138, but I know they're now on 144 charities. And I think they're close to nearly 200,000 children now. Bearing in mind COVID, they did do additional campaigns and additional money, but COVID is an anomaly. It's not the standard CRM. So yeah, but basically the 2 Rand does go a long way. And I mean, this ad is probably 2 years old. And this is the challenge when we're putting these webinars together, is we can only use content that's in the public space. So there isn't updated stuff in the public space, but it's a lovely campaign. For those charities that are getting support from KFC, it's not for Mahala. You have to be able to report and be accountable, because KFC has to be accountable to the public. But what we're basically saying here is that for a small donation of 2 Rand, when you consider, you know, I don't buy from KFC every day, but a typical KFC consumer is probably spending at least 30, 40, 50 Rand per transaction, if not more. You know, to add 2 Rand is not a huge amount. It's a lovely round figure. It's an easy ask. And your corporate is fundraising for you. Your corporate is fundraising for you, because you would never have the resources and the ability to speak to every KFC consumer going through a drive-through or walking into a KFC. And that's the beauty of CRM, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you can get it right, your corporate is raising money for you and creating awareness. The challenge with KFC, the one downfall I have, is that because they're supporting so many charities, as a consumer, you don't really know who the 144 charities are. So as the charity, you're not building brand for yourself, you're raising money. But no one's going to sneeze at KFC saying, here's money to feed 60,000 children a day. It's lovely money. But like any donor, you still have to report, you still have to give them help to promote, you still need to give them recognition. But it's probably one of South Africa's longest standing, consistent CRMs. CRMs were around before KFC, but it's probably the longest, most consistent CRM we've seen, where it's been going for many, many, many years.
And just to add to that, sorry, before you go on to Rounder, Calvin, a little cautionary tale about working in particularly food industries. A lot of the time people say, oh, it'd be wonderful, I'll ask my local restaurant to add on to the bill or to buy a bracelet or whatever the case might be. What they found, though, is when it's a restaurant where there are waiters, the money often ends up coming out of the waiter's tip. Because, you know, people are funny that way. And the waiters don't actually like to promote them because they lose out. So when you are putting these plans together, look at it from every possible angle. And
have conversations with your donor. You know, it's not something that you come up with an idea and whoops, tomorrow it's launched. And I mean, we do have, I'm not going to embarrass people, but we do have one individual on the call that does a lot of CRM, and I'm hoping that individual is going to contribute. And has been very successful in CRM. But they will tell you it doesn't take 2 minutes, and it's a relationship. It takes work. So on to Rounder. So Rounder started, I think, about 4 years ago, and it actually is it copycatted the KFC model, where the Nikela Trust was established, and they went to a number of food and FMCG companies, because remember, KFC is only at KFC. So they said, okay, how can we replicate the KFC ad hoc model with other corporates? And they went to KFC first and said, listen, this is our idea. We're not going to compete. We're not going to, if somebody's going to buy from Steers versus KFC, that's their choice. But when they go to Steers, we want them to also donate. And the charities that are benefiting from the Nikela Trust through Rounder, there is a proviso that the same children can't benefit from both organizations, so that they respect Rounder and Nikela Trust, and KFC ad hoc. And basically what Rounder does is it's the same model, but it's asking people to add a Rand as opposed to 2 Rand. There was big debates as to whether that would work. And I was fortunate to have been in initial strategy discussions with Rounder. And there was big debates about, are you undercutting KFC? And actually not. It's about trying to get that extra bit of money out of the consumer's pocket. And I mean, R1 again, when you're spending $50 on a takeaway, or 49 Rand on a takeaway is not going to kill you to round that up to 50 Rand. And hence the rounder. They also wanted to get corporates to round up on your till, round up to the nearest 5 cents, round up to the nearest 10 cents. So that's the concept. So Round is a very similar model. They're not as big as KFC. They're obviously still building. They are raising probably a tenth of what KFC raises now. But with time, they will also build momentum and build market share. So just 2 examples, they are working with Steers and McDonald's, as well as they are bringing on fuel stations. They've brought on some pizza houses. They're bringing on a hotel chain. They're bringing on some retail partners. So I think we're going to see Rounder a lot more diversified than KFC. But for me, it's about the consumer, giving the consumer the platform to be able to choose to give, because it's not automatic. They have to ask the customer, will you please add R1 for this campaign? So I think it's a lovely idea to show that the industry is not precious, and KFC gave it their blessing in the sense that they're saying, well, if a consumer is going to buy their takeaway at Steers today as opposed to KFC, let's try and get that extra R1 out of their pocket. So that's another case study we wanted to share with you.
So now we're moving on to what is probably the oldest CRM campaign in South Africa. It was originally a connection between the Avril Elizabeth home and the Elizabeth Ann baby care product range. So that was the shampoos and powders and bum creams and all of that. When was it Purity that bought out Elizabeth Ann?
So no, it was the other way. Yes, it was Purity, because when I was at Tiger, Purity bought out Elizabeth Ann's. Yeah. So they're now one consumer brand.
And what's nice is it's extended the product range.
Absolutely.
So instead of it just being the sort of the bathing type products, they have included a range of food products. And for a period of time every year, a certain amount of every sale is donated to the Avril Elizabeth home. And I mean, I am a bit of a Johnson & Johnson's girl. I can't tell a lie. But when this campaign was on, I shifted so that the home would benefit. So it's a very powerful way of introducing people to, how can I put it, the stepchild brand. Because I think J&J really has the market for baby products. But this gave Elizabeth Ann a real shot in the arm in terms of their public exposure, and really showed how much they cared and what a great brand they were. So lovely opportunity going on to this day. And this one I know is more than 19 years old. I think it's probably around the 30, 35-year mark.
I think this is the oldest in the country.
Yeah, brilliant, ongoing. We love it. It just works. The connection is so strong. You know, we talk about ways to find those connections. What better than this one? Absolutely beautiful. Can we go on to the next slide, please?
Just quickly, I just wanted to share on this one, Mel, is that I think lessons out of this one, which are really nice touch points, is number one, Avril Elizabeth Home is not a national organization. It's
absolutely.
It's a one home that is very specialized. There is no association. In other words, the Avril Elizabeth Home was registered and has been around longer than Elizabeth Ann's as a product. So they didn't copycat names, because a lot of people think it's the name association. It's not. No. It only runs for 3 months, and it raises a specific amount of money. But it just shows that you can be a home with 50 beneficiaries in wherever, and you can have a national campaign. So don't limit yourself and say, well, I'm only in Pofadder, so therefore I can't do CRM. You can. It's about being bold, good positioning, good brand positioning, and also showing your prospective CRM partner the benefits and the value add. And I remember when I was at Tiger Brands and worked on this project, I have to give Avril Elizabeth credit. They really were good with their reporting, their impact reviews. They spent a lot of time with us saying, okay, how can we tell the story differently on social media this year about how the money has helped? They didn't just take it for granted that, oh, so are we doing this again this year? You have to come up with new strategies and campaigns every year. And like they came up with the teddy bear with the 3-month bubble there. And then when Purity came on, there was a whole hadunta because we had the Purity brand people and the Elizabeth Ann's brand people. And you're talking food products and baby bath products, trying to come together and put one strategy together for a campaign that's going to help a charity. So it really threw a cat amongst the pigeons, but it was a great opportunity to enhance the value add and the social good for a brand like Purity and Elizabeth Ann's. So lessons out of this is that don't feel you're limited if you are a regional or a single organization. Whoopsie, bless you.
Oh, sorry. You'll be pleased to know, guys, it's not COVID. I'm allergic to everything and spring has sprung. I'm actually so glad that you raised the fact that Avril Elizabeth Home is only in one location. There's one really great campaign that benefited massively over COVID that you and I didn't even think of. And that is the fantastic relationship between Take a Lot and Beautiful Gate South Africa.
Yeah.
Similar principle. Beautiful Gate is in Cape Town doing remarkable work. I've been privileged to work with them. Remarkable work in Philippine Lower Crossroads. Very parochial though, in a specific community, making an enormous difference. And of course, lockdown hits, we could only buy online, and Take a Lot was there to promote and really get Beautiful Gate's message out there. So lovely opportunity there, really maximized by COVID. Finally, something good out of COVID. And then the next thing that I want to talk about is the Sunflower Fund, another organization I've been very privileged to work with. And they made a really interesting pivot. I've actually got this year's. So if there's anybody from the Sunflower Fund on the call, I am waving the flag, as it were. The Sunflower Fund started Bandana Day more than 15 years ago. And it was in partnership with Pick n Pay. So Sunflower Fund purchased, they were bandanas at that point, because I don't know if you know this, buff is a trademarked name. So you are not allowed to call this a buff. So you'll see that people call it athletic headgear and all kinds of things, but we couldn't call it a buff. So we sat down for an awfully long time and tried to figure out, and we came up with a taupe, a tube of hope. And because the Sunflower Fund, when they changed the brand over to the taupe several years ago, it was all about hope. It remains all about hope. It was the perfect name. And Bandana Day has become Sunflower Day. In fact, it's this Friday, tomorrow. So if you haven't got your taupe, please rush out and get it now. And for a relatively small amount, I think this year it's 35 Rand for an adult one, you can help save a life. What a cool thing to do. They are promoted primarily through Pick n Pay. They have been from day one, and Pick n Pay has been really amazing about the distribution and the marketing thereof. But they're now also marketing them in certain pharmacies and I think Zando online. And it's become quite the thing to have either in every color for a specific year, or I always make sure I have a blue one. I think I've got about, goodness knows how many blue ones in my drawer. They're great for cycling, for running. I wouldn't know about those things. I don't exercise, but I've heard that they're really great for cycling and running. Great for holding the hair back if you need to hold the hair back. But what a beautiful relationship between Pick n Pay and Sunflower. And I know it hasn't always been smooth. I've sat in on some sessions that have been robust. But the fact that they have such a great relationship with Pick n Pay, and the fact that they can sit down and have the tough conversations when tough conversations need to be had, means that the campaign has been sustained, it's grown. And I think even though I know I can get my taupe somewhere else, I always go and get one from Pick n Pay. So I think it's one of those really mutually beneficial relationships that Sunflower Fund can really be proud of, and Pick n Pay.
Yeah. So I think also, ladies and gentlemen, it's about showing that you can make it happen, and it's about exploring an opportunity. And I mean, if you Pick n Pay clothing, yes, they sell sportswear, but it's not an automatic brand association for a sports taupe to be with a food retailer. So, and again, like Avril Elizabeth, it's not automatic that a home caring for those beneficiaries would link back to a product like Avril Elizabeth. Yes, Pampers and UNICEF, there was a bit of a link. So don't limit yourself, be bold, have the idea, and then approach a potential partner. So I think that the whole thing about CRM is you've got to find that right partner, and you've got to be able to find that association and then work with that partner. All right, another one. It's a very old one that's from years ago. So what we wanted to do was show that CRM's been around for a long time. So Sea Harvest did an interesting one, and the reason why we chose this one is that we wanted to show also that CRM traditionally is not always aimed at one particular target audience. So this one was Sea Harvest Kids for Kids, where back then, I mean, we're talking many, many years ago, they were adding 10 cents for every product to the Children's Hospital Trust. Again, very Cape Town based, but a national organization in all food outlets had done a CRM, but they were appealing to children who are going to consume their fish fingers and their whatever else to support this project so that other children could benefit. And I mean, the child's not the one that's going to go to the shop and buy the fish fingers, but they'll be with mom or dad. And the whole thing was, how do we influence? The same methodology, the same psychology that McDonald's does with the toys you get with buying a Happy Meal. And 90% of the time, the kids don't even want the damn Happy Meal. They just want the toy. So this was an interesting one for me, that they were very strategic about appealing to children to support other children, which I think is a lovely campaign to educate children. And we're talking more than 10 years ago, it raised more than $1.5 million. It drove the consumer behavior. It built the Red Cross Children's Hospital brand, which again has a lot of brand recognition, but is very location specific. And this relationship went on for more than 10 years. So that's why we wanted to share this one with you, is that when you are developing a CRM strategy, how do you link and how do you pull at the heartstrings of those that can afford to give to benefit your beneficiaries? And here what they did was get kids to talk to kids. So it was quite an interesting campaign. Another one, and the reason I wanted to show this one is that this is not a massive international brand. And I mean, with all love and respect to the stationery geeks in the room, and Miss Jackson is smiling because I know she's a typo geek, but you know, who would have a stapler? But we all have to buy a stapler now and again. So it's giving you the value proposition of the stapler, which is obviously this is a superior brand because they talk about it being lightweight, and one finger technology and yada yada yada. But they've done a pink stapler to link back to the cancer campaign. And I mean, cancer's been very successful in doing a lot of CRM. They don't just do one a year; they do many CRMs. You know, they've got the Shave-a-thon, they've got this, they've got Cuppa for Cancer, they've got all these campaigns they run throughout the year. So the reason why I put this one up is we wanted to show you that it doesn't have to be a multinational in Pick and Pay or in Dis-Chem or in a huge retailer. You can also link to a manufacturer, whether it's a water company, a staple company, a pen company, a coffee company, and they push it out through their retailers. So link with a brand or link with a retailer. So you can do both. And that's this, I mean, I don't know the stats, but I don't foresee that selling staplers is not a fast moving consumer good. How often do you buy a stapler? But if they raise 10,000 or 20,000 Rand out of this, fantastic. And it's creating the brand awareness because they're linking back to cancer. It's social responsibility as far as supporting cancer, but also obviously this particular manufacturer is going to push their pink stapler because it is supporting cancer. So think out of the box. Don't just think big retailers and big international and national campaigns.
Thanks, Calvin. Monique's actually just told us cancer sold 14,000 staplers this year. So that is not too shabby.
Thank you, Monique. And I didn't want to put you under the bus, but for those of you that don't know, a legend in fundraising who's been around longer than all of us, Monique works with Cancer Association and does a lot of their CRM events. And thank you for sharing, Monique, because that's really great data. And who would have thought 14,000 staplers would be sold?
Very nice. And in fact, there's another lovely example with the Sunflower Fund, actually. They have a relationship with a water brand. And And you'll see that water brand on Kalula aeroplanes. Well, we used to. Sold in
restaurants.
And I can remember them being all excited, and I think the amount they get is 10 cents per bottle. And I remember thinking to myself, 10 cents is not going to go very far. But if you look at the volume, it's a really fantastic opportunity for the Sunflower Fund. So well done to them on that one too. With this next example, in fact, the next two examples, we wanted to show you the different ways that you can engage. This is actually something being done by the Dis-Chem Foundation, which is obviously the corporate's foundation. And they did it in partnership with Future Life. And the idea here is to give 50,000 nutritious meals a month to children in need. Oh, sorry, guys, it was 1 cent per bottle, not 10 cents per bottle. No wonder I was horrified. But in actual fact, it's a great campaign. But coming back to Dis-Chem and Future Life, this is something that Dis-Chem, through their foundation, is actually spearheading in partnership with Future Life. And it drives sales for Future Life because socially responsible consumers will prefer to do something where they're actually benefiting a cause. And, you know, we talk a lot about passive income for nonprofits out of CRM. But if you think about it, it's also passive feel good for donors. Because the guy's not doing anything. He's just maybe looking at the brands and going, okay, not Kellogg's this month, but Future Life. And it's a lovely way to support a cause. And the donor feels all warm and fuzzy and toasty inside because they've done this amazing thing. But in actual fact, all they've done is buy something they were going to buy anyway. It maybe has just challenged brand behavior a little bit. So really interesting. Kelvin, can you pop on to the next slide, please?
Yes, I can. 1 second.
And here's another one. Now, this one, interestingly, is with a number of brands, also through Dis-Chem. And it is specifically for the, what's the name of the campaign?
It's the one for caring for girls, which is collecting sanitary pads for girls at school. So it's caring for girls.
So it's working with a couple of brands. And again, nobody's really having to give anything up. Nobody's spending money other than the money that they might have already spent, because what they're asking for here is for you to buy an extra product and pop it in the bin. So in actual fact, I really hope, fingers crossed, that each of those brands made a direct donation as well in order to be a part of this campaign, because they're getting really good brand mileage here. But it's a wonderful way, again, to make a donor feel warm and fuzzy. They're buying an extra product. And, you know, while sanitary products in the greater scheme of things for middle-class households, it's nothing to add an extra pack to your groceries. For a child trying to get to school and doesn't have the money for that, it makes an enormous difference to so many things. So what I love about the Dis-Chem campaigns is that they work at a really fundamental level. We're not selling something that's luxury or a frill, or this is fundamental stuff. And I'm really impressed with the way that Dis-Chem handles these. And I suspect that it comes out of the foundation, a lot of the ideas and the planning, but we're going to get to who initiates these sorts of things in a minute.
So Mel, I think that the lesson out of this one is that Dis-Chem, and I mean, look, let's go back 20 years when Dis-Chem started. I mean, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you had your pharmacist that was your corner pharmacist. And Dis-Chem have created a supermarket for pharmaceuticals and food and. But it's really a serious contender in the space. So what Dis-Chem have done is say, we have all these stores, we have all this foot traffic, we have all these consumers that we know that come into our stores. How do we, when they're in store, get them to give to charity through our platform? So what I love what Dis-Chem is doing is that they are not aligning themselves with one brand and one cause. You know, here's two examples, and I think this is going to grow and help Dis-Chem, because I see, I'm sure the 20 are now going to be hucking them next week to say, here's an idea for another CRM. But what I'm saying is that if Dis-Chem can get to the space where they can do 6 CRMs a year or 12 CRMs a year for multiple charities, what a wonderful idea, where you get your consumer, because the consumer that's giving to the sanitary towel project might not give to the Future Life project, and vice versa. I mean, disclosure, you're more likely to convince the male customer to give to the food as opposed to but the female customer is going to give to the sanitary towels. So I love what they're doing. And what I'm trying to say here is that when you're talking to a brand that has many franchises and big customer bases, don't try and hog it. Give space to everybody, but also come up with strategies that are going to add value to their life, because at the end of the day, it's business. And Dis-Chem is competing with Clicks and Pick and Pay and everybody else. So this makes them look good and positions them above their competitors in store, because you now have a warm and fuzzy feeling about Dis-Chem when you walk into Dis-Chem and see what they're doing. So lovely ideas, and some great ideas and copycat models that we can all take away. All right. So this is a slightly different one, and it was a gray area, I will disclose, because we had big fights between Melanie and I as to whether this was sponsorship or CRM.
Robust discussion.
No, I call it spade, Melanie. We had a fight. It's fine. So this is one that Swanee SPCA has done, and Rian, who worked on this, is actually on the call, and he didn't even know I'd put this in, so apologies, Rian. But what they did was they came up with a strategy of do a calendar every year, because of what they do, they've got beautiful photographs of these lovely animals, and their customer base who support the Swanee SPCA are animal lovers. So why not monopolize on that and get them to buy a calendar? So these calendars go at 80 Rand a calendar, excluding postage. But what they did was, as you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, is every single month, the cost for producing the calendar was divided by 12, and the 12 donors that contributed to the cost of the calendar, obviously each one of them got a month. So yes, there is some brand recognition, but what we're trying to show here is that it costs SPCA nothing to produce this. The people that sponsored a page paid for it. The beauty is that the full 80 Rand for the cost of the calendar is going straight to the SPCA. The other thing they've done very, very cleverly is that if you look at the photographs, so Charlie was adopted in 2020, Shumba was adopted in 2019, and the dog on the cover, Arthur, was adopted in 2019. So what they've done is they've showcased their success stories. Now, if you look at all three of these photographs, these animals are happy, healthy, spoiled, rotten. It's not the picture you have of SPCA. So they're showing the positive of, this is the end result of our intervention and our work. And they're showcasing their beneficiaries. So they ran a competition, and people that had adopted animals could put in photographs, and they selected 12, and that, those animals were put on a page. So what we're trying to show here is that CRM doesn't always have to be you going to a partner and the partner doing it. You can also be creative like this and almost create your own CRM, where you have multiple partners, you develop a project, and it generates funds for you. So hence, Melanie and I had robust discussion, because it is a gray area, but at the end of the day, you gave those partners that contributed towards the project an opportunity to give back, and you got to showcase your work, and you're getting to raise money. And lastly, everyone that buys this calendar, that puts it on their desk, your brand association and your brand awareness lasts throughout the year. So well done to the SPCA Swanee, lovely idea. And why we showcase this one is that if you're a local animal shelter, or you're a local children's home, or you're a local education project, you can do a local as local as well. They're not going to sell 100,000 calendars, but they're going to sell a couple of thousand. It's going to raise awareness. It's going to raise money. And you're giving your donors the opportunity to partner with you and support you. So it's a bit of a CRM.
Yes, and I think, Calvin, what tipped it in favor of CRM for me was the fact that most, if not all, of the donors sold through their retail outlets.
Yes.
And so obviously some were not retail facing, but they then worked with their retailers to make it available for sale as well.
So they've done it in the local vets. Also, a lot of the partners that have sponsored a page have bought a whole stack that they are giving to their clients as Christmas gifts. So the local vets, the local printing company, you know, and it's a lovely little way of doing things. So what we're trying to show is that you can also create your own, do it for yourself, and be creative. That CRM doesn't always have to have one huge partner. It can be multiple partners.
Absolutely.
Right, let's move on. And so this is your one.
The fine print. This is me, the details. You've got to have a contract. Basically, you are giving these people access to your brand. You have to be very clear. You are, as we've said here, leasing the logo. So what is nice is that more often than not, your partners are big corporations. They've got legal teams. They can help put the contract together. Make sure you have an independent, impartial eye over it, but you must protect your brand. It's absolutely critical. Yeah. It may require exclusivity. So I'm working with an organization at the moment that has a fantastic relationship with one of the cell phone retailers. We are not able to approach any other cell phone companies or anything related to that sort of technology because we have signed an exclusivity agreement with them. As I've said, more often than not, it can be drawn up by the corporate's legal team. It should have timeframes. And Merle, I would ordinarily say we'll address your question after, but I'm going to address it as part of this. Some are year-round, but the most successful ones I'm seeing are campaign-based. So they run for a period of time in the year, maybe 3 months, maybe 2 months, and it has targets. So you've got to look realistically at the average sales of that particular product or service or whatever it might be, and then see what your target is, and could you achieve it within that time frame? So, you know, and it's always lovely to be a little bit conservative in your target, because then you get to say, wow, you guys are so great, we overshot our target. So, you know, don't undersell it, but err on the side of caution and make sure that if you are using a time-bound target system, it's reachable and doable.
And sorry, Mel, can I just interject there? Because
Yes.
I've seen this fail horribly, where CRMs say, we need to raise 5 million Rand for a new classroom, or we need to raise 5 million Rand to put meals on tables for children. The damage and the danger of that is if you only raise 500,000 Rand, the public go, okay, so what's wrong with this one? Rather say you want to help 100,000 children. You want to help 50,000 animals. You want to help 10,000 children at school. So put a beneficiary number if you're going to put a number in. But at the beginning, in the old days, and I was guilty of this, we used to say, we're going to raise 1 million Rand in 3 months. It's very dangerous. So just be very cautious of putting a figure to that, because it's also, you set yourself up for the failure, because the donor and the partner then gets quite discouraged and despondent and all you start measuring every week is the income, not the brand value and all those other things.
Absolutely. And then the last point on this for me is the most important. Keep your finger on the pulse. Stay involved. If you see a problem emerging, rather be able to stop it right there and then than have some ghastly, horrendous disaster 3 months down the line because nobody was paying attention. So I would say those are the sort of the minimum things you need to be thinking about, but certainly on the creative front, make sure that you stay involved.
Yeah. So absolutely. And I think just on that point as well is that what I've seen work in CRM projects that I've worked on is that in the legal agreement, it is a term that anything on pack that has got the logo or mention of the CRM campaign, you need to co-sign, or your organization needs to co-sign off, because it can go horribly wrong. And also keep your finger on the pulse with the brand, in the sense that if the brand has negative publicity, your link and association to that brand will spill over onto your brand, and it may be at no fault of yours. So just be very, very cautious. I will give you an example. A corporate, and I'm not going to mention names, you'll know when I tell you, there was 3 corporates that were charged by the Competition Commission for bread price fixing about 10 years ago now. And I was involved in one of those corporates. And for about 5 years after that, everything we tried to do around working with charities, the media would hit us and say, it's because of the bread price fixing, you're now trying to make good and catch up. And those poor charities had to answer, but why are you partnering with a company that was charged with bread price fixing? You know, so you've got to be very sensitive and careful, but make sure it's in the legal contract. That's especially all marketing material, all ad campaigns, all social media campaigns, all TV adverts, all radio adverts, everything. You co-sign off, and vice versa. You don't get creative and do a social media post and stretch your corporate brand, your corporate partner's brand, and mess it up either. So everything, both parties need to co-sign, because they are endorsing your brand, you're endorsing theirs. And if it goes wrong, the damage is huge. If it goes right, like Avril Elizabeth, like Ad Hope, you know, like UNICEF, it can be a brand and in a relationship every single year. All right, let's move on in the interest of time. So, is this me or you? No, we did rehearse this.
That's you.
Me, 20. Sorry, I lost track of my numbers in my notebook. All right, how do you do it? Have a strategy. Like anything, have a strategy. Please do your research. Google, Trilog, you've got no excuse. You can research that brand, you can see what they're doing, and don't be cheap and nasty and now go to Discam if you're a food charity and go, but FutureLab supported you last year, you did this, and now you must do it with us next year. Be creative, do your research, look at models and take those examples and demonstrate to the corporates the value of CRM. Get new corporates involved in CRM. It doesn't have to be the same 10. Have a solid proposition. What is it you're asking for? What is going to be the benefit? How is it going to benefit the corporate? And what is the opportunity? Measure your ROI. And your ROI is not only the money raised. Often the corporate has got systems like MediaClip. They've got very clever people that can measure brand proposition and brand value. And believe me, they will be doing research to say, since we partnered with this charity, how has our brand value increased? They will share that with you if you ask. It's lovely data. And a lovely thing, which I'm sure the likes of Munich will back me, is that when you get that data, when you go to your next CRM partner, you can say, we did this CRM, we were successful. Look at what we did for this corporate. We can do the same for you. This is not a freebie, ladies and gentlemen. This is not Mahala. This is a transaction. You are giving them something, they are getting something from you. So it's a partnership. Get your prospective donor to visit your project and meet your beneficiaries before you finalize your campaign and your strategy, because they will then see the linkage between their brand and their consumers and their clients and your organization. The offering must be attractive. So don't tell me you need to raise 100,000 Rand for children. Don't tell me you need to raise 100,000 Rand to feed children. So what? What is the benefit of a nutritious meal to that child? Because that's the language the corporate wants to know. Relationships, 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 relationships. It is going to be taxing and time consuming for you as the fundraiser to manage that corporate and to manage that relationship. And your board may turn around and say, but we only raised 100,000 Rand. You spent 20 days working on this project. Yes, you can't justify it, but you need to push back and talk about building the relationships and the brand association. Communication, marketing, and fundraising needs to be consistent. So the brand messaging needs to be consistent from the corporate side and from your side. Why are you doing it? How long are you doing it for? What is the goals? And what is the impact that the campaign is going to make for the beneficiaries? Not for your organization, for the beneficiaries. By funding this, by buying this product, you are helping ABC. And your board must support your strategy and plan. Please, in your annual strategic plan, if you're planning CRM, you need to have a strategy of your CRM, and the board need to buy in it and support it. And lastly, in capital letters, it takes time. And thank you for sharing. Munich just said that it takes time to get going. They are now trying to look at 2-3 year relationships and timeframes. I know sometimes a CRM can take 18 months to 24 months. just to sign the damn contract. And then, sorry for you, the campaign's only launching 7 months later. So, you've worked for 3 years before you see a cent.
Yeah.
It takes time. It's an investment. It's not a quick fix. If you're short of money, you need to raise R1 million between now and Christmas, CRM is not your answer. CRM is a long-term strategy that is going to build brand and build ongoing relationships and money. And also remember that the consumer that buys that stapler or buys that KFC meal or, I don't know, buys that bottle of water is also maybe going to make the decision to buy that product because of the brand association with the CRM. So the end consumer is actually the one that you are influencing and shaping, because by buying that product, they're supporting your campaign. So put the time and money in, it will be worth it. Right, what you need to know. Mel, that's you.
Right, sorry, I had to sneeze. You need to really clearly understand the expectations on both sides of the CRM campaign and the partnership. You've got to look at the legalities, as we've said, you've got to look at the marketing. There has to be a feedback and report back mechanism set in place. If you're using social media, like so many of us do, those frequent updates help to catalyze and remind people of the campaign. And then again, it comes down to, like everything else we do in fundraising, it comes down to building those relationships, really making it clear, and building something that doesn't just last for a 3-year cycle, but lasts for a 20, 30-year cycle, like we're seeing with UNICEF and Pampers.
Absolutely. Sure. And we have got time for probably 1 or 2 questions, because we're running out of time again. Maybe.
Yes.
We do this as we rehearse this. Okay, we got to clap this in 45 minutes, and then
we talk. Yes. So Anne has a really great question. I think if we don't address any more, this is the one I'd really like us to talk about.
Yep.
The question is, once the concept has been developed and potential corporate partners identified, what degree of detail should the NPO prepare when approaching the corporate? So does the onus fall on the nonprofit to have worked out the whole system and implementation, or is this developed in partnership?
Sure. Nice question. Thank you, Anne. So in my experience, and I'll ask Melanie to share as well, is that it's about taking the concept. I wouldn't put huge effort into a 40-page document. Put a concept note together, say, this is what we do. This is what we need to raise money for the campaign. This is why we need a CRM partner. And the turning point is, this is why we believe your brand or your organization is a good partner. And you've got to sell the fit to them. You've got to sell the fit to them. So in other words, it's no use doing a campaign with an airline for an organization that is not in any relevant space or shape or form. So you've got to be able to get that fit right and the benefits. And I would take the concept notes, and look, I've had it where you take it to 15 corporates and nobody bites, and then the 16th bites. It's just the way it is. They might not have budget, they might not have appetite, they might not be ready, you don't know. And then once they bite, it's then about, okay, we're interested, we really want to work with you on this one. You then form an MOU, and what I suggest is you form a working committee and you brainstorm and you sit with the marketing team before you get into the legal agreement. That's how I would do it. Mel?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, and more than that, for me, the best CRM campaigns are initiated by the nonprofit.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not the ones that come out of corporate, because the nonprofit's understanding of the linkage is far greater than the corporates. And I think for me, that concept note has to very clearly articulate the why. And, I talk a lot about the why. It's my big thing, because that's what's going to sell it, is your why and their why resonating. And that whole what's in it for me all has to come into play in that concept note, because I think that at concept level, if you can't make that first connection, it's not going to fly.
And just